I want to say today it's not about me. I want to give a bit of color about my background, also my learnings, but I really want to make it useful for everybody here, right? That's why I'm here. The idea of the presentation is the following. I'll share a bit of my learnings along the way. I've seen a couple of different industries, which I think can be interesting. I've been in the finance space. I've had my own business. I think for those that are here, everybody's interested in finance, as I learned. And many of you want to be entrepreneurs. So hopefully that's useful. And what we will then do is I have a little surprise towards the end. Plus we do also leave some time for Q&A. How does that sound? Good? Let's get started. Okay. So on my side, what's my philosophy? I copied here Abraham Lincoln. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And so this should be also the theme for today's presentation. It's really about empowering everybody here to create, right? To unleash your potential. Everybody here is highly talented, and I want to make sure I give you at least some of the tools that I found helpful in order to excel in whatever it is that you want to pursue your career on. Quickly on my side, as Andreas already mentioned, timeline, I studied here at Vivi, as I think most of you, everybody here is doing as well. I have an identical twin brother. I did a master's right afterwards. Then I started in investment banking in London, Morgan Stanley. I know probably many of you are interested in finance also have considered investment banking, and I can also share some of my reflections on that side. Then I went on to do private equity. I was at HG Capital, the largest European tech private equity firm. And then afterwards, I started my own company called Valorio, which is a private equity holding, which I sold then in 2023. And now I have a couple of new ventures that I'm focused on. Valorio in a nutshell. So Valorio was the business that I started together with my twin brother and with Alex. Alex is one of my closest friends, and actually it was Goethe University that brought us together. So we met during university. I think probably you remember we were quite seen quite oftentimes together at the different finance events. And so Alex then also became one of the co-founders. So I was in London, Martin as well, in the finance route. And we said, okay, we want to start something entrepreneurial. And Alex was part of the core team. We already knew early on that we want to do something entrepreneurial. And then the question was, okay, what are we going to do, where, in which capacity? We started the business 2020. We got started then officially in December 2020. We raised quite a bit of capital from international investors across multiple rounds. So we did like 5 fundraising rounds, which in total was, let's say, over $100 million in terms of capital raised. And we built a team across Latin America. So we were operating in Latin America, started the business in Mexico City, and then I moved personally to Brazil. We also opened up Brazil and Colombia. We had a team of 250 people, and then we sold the business to Razor Group, German holding, and we stayed on board. So this is a quick nutshell. So then the question, obviously, that I oftentimes get when I tell the story, and people ask me about, okay, Valorio, what is it? It's like, why Mexico? 3 German guys working in finance in London. Like, what was the lot of thinking behind? What was the rationale? How it came upon was very spontaneous. So I was a competitive tennis player earlier on and had a lot of friends from Latin America. I spoke some Spanish, some Portuguese. And we were like, okay, we want to do something together. We want to do something that's exciting. And what could it be? We were also fortunate because as we knew that we want to do something entrepreneurial, we started early on already cultivating the network and getting in touch with potential investors. So, as Andreas briefly mentioned, we come from a, let's say, small village close to Frankfurt called Erlensee. Not sure if you guys know, it's close to Hanau. And so we didn't come from the big finance world or a big entrepreneurial family. In fact, parents are immigrants from Eastern Europe, and a lot of things were new, right? And so we said, okay, let's start our journey. And we saw an interesting business that was doing extremely well at that point in the US, and we saw that nobody was doing that in Latin America. And we were like, okay, let's do it. So we decided to do that, moved to Mexico City, the three of us, and things were moving extremely fast. So when we set foot in Mexico City, we already raised the initial capital and started already speaking to the different companies, because the business model in a nutshell was we acquired different consumer brands. And funny story was that for the first 2 months, we were moving so fast. We were all living together. We had like a joint flat, 3 German guys, and we were all sleeping. Everybody in the room had only a mattress, because we didn't have we didn't find good beds in Mexico City, and we were new to the city. So we were moving extremely fast. We started out, and then things fell into place. And this is also, let's say, an encouragement to people who want to do something. Is obviously you should anticipate certain things, and you should plan, but sometimes the universe conspires in your favor. So if there's something you're really interested in, you have a certain passion, it's infectious, and I've seen that also things will then also fall into place. And so that was the reason why we then started in Mexico City and then expanded beyond. Very quickly, so this was just, let's say, the part about me. Again, it should not be about me, it should be about you guys and girls, and making most useful. So what were some of the learnings that I had reflecting on the entrepreneurial journey? I think number one is build relationships early. So this is what I said also when it comes to the co-founders, right? So I'm not sure if you guys are friends, but you're sitting together. It's like, it can be that in 8 years, you guys or one of you will be standing here and then sharing the lessons learned from your entrepreneurial venture that the 3 of you did together, or the 2 of you, right? I think this is number one. Build the relationships early with people that you respect, that you like, that you value, that have also similar aspirations. And this goes also beyond. It's not only the co-founders, but it's also about other stakeholders, right? It can be mentors, that we have here, Jan, Andreas, like somebody that can also give you guidance in your journey as you're starting out. So this is the first point. Number 2, speed is a currency. So everybody is a student, and there's a lot of focus on having the right answer. And I've seen that myself both as a student, but also afterwards, is especially when you're working in finance, it's a lot about getting things right. And it's about when you prepare for the studies, you need to make sure everything is correct. And what I've seen is in the real world as an entrepreneur, there is value in speed. And you don't always have to have everything perfect, right? If you start your business, you don't have to have everything perfect, but there's value in actually being fast to market and start selling things, start advertising, gathering feedback. And I think that's also you guys are doing now an exercise, right, around building business plans and startup ideas. So in the real world, there is value in speed. And I think there was also for us that we created momentum. So that's basically like we started raising some capital that helped also then attract others, because they were like, there's something moving fast, I want to be part of that. So speed is a currency. Number 3, I would say understand the game you're playing. So the point is, depending on what kind of company you want to build, try to also see what are the relevant constituents of, quote unquote, the game. So let's say you want to start a pizza shop. Understand what are the variables to build a successful pizza shop. Say you want to invest in real estate. Try to understand, and the best way is obviously to speak with people who have done it and understand what are the elements that need to happen in order for you to be successful in whatever you're doing. Number 4, don't do it just for the money. I think especially early on for the people that go into finance, it's like, okay, I want to make the money, I want to do this and the status and proving. And the entrepreneurial journey, in general the journey of life, is you never know how things will unfold. You can be lucky, sometimes things may fall into place, but sometimes it takes also longer. And I've seen it also with, including myself, but also many friends, that they maybe do something entrepreneurial where it's like more focused on, okay, let's do this to make money or do this very quickly. and not really being engaged with a mission or having a certain purpose of what you're doing, because the reality is most things take more time than you think. And so I've seen the ones that are giving up with their business are the ones that are only motivated by the financial upside. I've seen many friends that were like, okay, they were working in maybe the finance industry or consulting, they want to start something and they just focus on something that can be lucrative, but they are also then the ones that later on maybe shut down the business as it does not really work out. Because in the first place, it was very one-dimensional. And so make sure this is something you're passionate and almost you want to do it also if you were not paid to do it. That's maybe an extreme example, but that's another learning. Choose a complementary team. So when we started with Valorio, it was 3 German guys who never lived in Mexico. So I've been there before, but I've never lived there. And the first 2 hires, what do you think? What was the nationality of the first 2 hires? German. Yes, exactly. So the first 2 hires were also German. And so obviously it was great. And why was that? Because we didn't have a strong network in Mexico yet, right? It was for us relatively new. So we went to something that was, let's say, accessible to us. So we chose people that we knew that were helpful. And again, you know, it's great, and it's great to do business also together with friends. But if you think about a founding team, if you start something together, understand your skill set and see if you can get also more complementarity. Next one is understanding the power of compounding. We'll touch on that also in a second. I think compounding is one of the most important principles for everybody here. And this is what I mean compounding is basically thinking about the key constituents that are important to you early on. What do I mean? These are things like location. These are things like the mission. These are things like skill set, right? So everything in life will come later on, and if you spend enough time. And we'll touch on it in a second, so I don't want to go too much. Number 7, focus on your zone of genius. So understand, you're learning about things, learning about yourself, figuring things out, and it's great, and you want to learn everything, which is the right mindset, especially early on in your career. But it's good to really understand what are your strengths. So for example, also with me and my brother, even though we are twins, we're very similar, but actually in many aspects we're also quite different. So he is, let's say, more introverted and extremely analytical. I'm also analytical, but I would say my strength was always, I was very creative as well. I had a very good eye. And so while being always on the finance side, I was like, okay, I'm the quote-unquote finance guy. Even though I realized actually that my strengths are really a lot on maybe the product design, crafting great experiences, great products, right? And this is something that it doesn't mean just because you study one thing that you cannot do something else, right? Just because you're sitting here in a business bachelor's that you don't have a creative side, right? Or that you don't have a different perspective as well. So try to think about what your strengths are and then find people that complement you. And the last one is you need to have fun, right? So when starting a business, it's not just about all numbers and frameworks, which is obviously part of the equation, but also you need to have fun. You need to have a good time. You need to do with people you like. You need to enjoy the process. You need to be excited when you speak about it. Get the mentors as well, because people will feel it. If you're just looking at it from the thinking mind, a lot of things will get lost. So have fun with it, enjoy the process, enjoy the learning. So now I was sharing some reflections on the Valorio side. Now, why you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? So there are pros and cons. I think entrepreneurship is great, and I will come to that in a second. But there are a lot of reasons why you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, and maybe it's not the right fit. And I like this quote from Elon Musk, is being entrepreneurs like eating glass and staring into the abyss of death. And we can also in the Q&A, you can ask some questions. I have some interesting stories also what we experienced in Mexico. But yeah, the point is that it can be also very painful. So I think also for us, for example, we scaled the team pretty quickly to 250 people within 1 year, basically. But then the market turned significantly, and we had to reduce the size of the team. And so we had to, within basically short time periods, let go of 100 people. So this is something that also is a very painful experience, because there are people that trusted in you, that they sign up for the journey, and you, let's say, promise them certain things, and then you say, look, now the journey is over for you, right? So there are a lot of painful elements, and also when it comes to beyond that is, you have to maybe sometimes do things you're not as excited about. And quite frankly, there are a lot of things that I say, look, actually, it's not the most joyful, and it would be nicer to sit now in investment banking or private equity or consulting and just do my job, have a boss, do what I have to do, and now I get a monthly paycheck, because entrepreneurship can be quite daunting as well, right? You have the good and the bad times. But I think net entrepreneurship is something that everybody should do at one point in their life. You can do it out of university, you can do it later on, but I think it just teaches you so many elements that are so enriching for your life. And I think first of all is it changes the way you see the world, because as an entrepreneur, you have to think about everything. So let's get example on the Valoro side again. Like before, I was sitting with a nice suit and tie in finance on my computer. I came to the office, I went out of the office, that's it. I didn't have to worry about many other things. On Valorio's side, okay, maybe sometimes it was dirty. I had to also clean up the office. Like the cleaning lady left, we had to clean up as well. There was an investor meeting the next day, it had to look good. You clean up the office, something is not working, there's a problem with the toilet. You have to organize somebody in Mexico and find somebody to fix the toilets in the office, right? So there's also things where I say okay, it's not the sexy part, but I think when you experience those things, you will see life differently, because you see that everything is created, nothing is given. When you just come in as an employee, things are given to you, and you're like, okay, I'm just, I'm here, I get the laptop, I do the things. Like here, professor tells me the question, I need to respond to the question, and that's it. You go home, you play some football or dancing, whatever you like to do, and that's it. But as an entrepreneur, you understand everything can be shaped. You can make it impact, you can change the world. And this is something that is fascinating, that it's actually, you can shape things, you can move things. And obviously then, if you have an interesting business, you can leverage that also to fast forward whatever you like to do. Number two is tremendous personal growth, which goes hand in hand, right? So you will get a lot of personal growth by doing that, by seeing all aspects that are required to running a business. Number three, obviously asymmetric financial upsides. If it goes well, it can be also more interesting than being in a stable job. And number four is also, if you want to be an entrepreneur anyways, you early on already start cultivating an entrepreneurial network, right? So if you're just sitting for the next 20 years in strategy consulting as Roland Berger, it's great. But the point is, it may not give you the entrepreneurial network that may be helpful to you if you say you want to build a big software company in Germany, for example, right? So there's value in that. When is the right time to be an entrepreneur? So now we say, okay, I think it's something that's positive. I would encourage you to be an entrepreneur. When is the right time? You guys are students here. What's the right moment? And in general, I think there's no right or wrong. It really depends on how you feel, which stage you're at personally, what you value, your circumstances. But I would say we can categorize it into two things, right? You can do it ASAP, let's say basically even within university, which can be also a great way, or basically straight out of university, or you can quote unquote get the real job first, right? And so the advantages of doing it right away is, I think especially now, there's a lot of sentiment across Europe and the European entrepreneurial ecosystem to foster innovation, to foster there maybe a sense also, to put it harsh, maybe a bit of feeling behind also when it comes maybe to the US or others. So people are now waking up in Germany, in the UK, etc. and like, okay, we want to do more. We want to stimulate the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we want to foster the talent that we have here today. And so there can be actually an advantage of being young and quote unquote going for it. Because people are also like somebody like myself or others that are, let's say, even more experienced, they like also to give back and help the younger generation. Because they know it's quite difficult and there's so many obstacles. So it's like, okay, I'm just going for it. This can be an advantage. You have this kind of actually almost advantage that you're young. People think, oh, but I don't have the experience. Oftentimes, I think sometimes it's even the opposite. It's like when you're young, it's like people kind of want to help you as well. They like it, they feel it empowering, and especially in the current times, that's something valuable. Number two, you obviously get earlier exposure to what I said earlier. So if you want to build a successful software business in Germany, like you can, quote unquote, get started earlier. Nowadays, and we will do this exercise in a moment, is, with Cursor, with Bolt, with ChatGPT, like, I mean, this is the time to get started. It was never easier to put something and bring it to life than nowadays, right? And what's the unique advantage is that the whole game is changing. It's not that I say like, okay, myself, Professor Hacketal, Jan, that we have a leg up, because it's completely new. ChatGPT didn't exist 10 years ago. Cursor, Bolt. Like you actually have an advantage because you have flexibility of time. You can learn about these things. And obviously, if you focus on these, you will have an advantage later on as well, because the times are changing. And then also with the skills that goes hand in hand. Advantages of getting a real job first. So why should you then, quote unquote, get a real job first? Is there can be also advantages understanding how it looks like in the, let's call it, real life. How it is. I mean, I guess most of you have done internships before, right? Who has not done an internship? You haven't done an internship yet? Okay. But let's say most of you, who has done an internship? Just to see if everybody's still awake? Okay, perfect. Okay, so most people have done internship. So there's actually value in seeing, okay, how does it look like in the real world? Not just being here in the university and working on the task, but how does it work in a work environment? How do you communicate? How do you approach certain things? So there's value in that as well. You also then later on appreciate the entrepreneurial freedom. I think that was also one of the reasons why we then also, quote unquote, went so fast on the Valores side, because before that, maybe we felt a bit constrained, working like in a employee relationship where we're like, okay, we want to do so much. And it's like now we had the freedom and we could really do the things. We could dedicate 24 hours a day, quote unquote, outside sleeping. But basically, we could really, we appreciate the entrepreneurial freedom. And number three is learn strategic understanding of industries. So everyone here is early on in the journey, meaning you don't have a lot of industry knowledge, right? How could you? Because you didn't have that exposure. So there can be also value if you want to start a business. Let's say you want to do a business in the automotive sector. Let's say you want to do a software for car manufacturers in Germany that makes it more efficient, the entire process. You can pick a part of the value chain. It obviously helps if you understand also how car manufacturing works. What are the tools they're using, right? So there's a value in having the industry expertise. I would say also, in the interest of, we plan a bit more time, but now I want to condense it a bit. So I will go a bit quicker through the other slides. So we have time to do also the, let's say, little exercise when it comes to how to build a business in 15 minutes. And then we leave time for the Q&A. So basically here, some of the concepts I will skip for now. If we have time, we can touch on the Q&A. Maybe one point, just because it's dear to my heart, is the fourth point, which is around purpose, which is something that, is something you will not get taught, in business school, right? Or elsewhere. It's very difficult. And I think this is something that I came to realize, and I would encourage to really reflect also, what is your purpose? right? It's a bit maybe philosophical, but it's like, why are you here? What do you want to do? What kind of impact do you want to have? Because I see that and we can do this little exercise. It's, what do you see? A dot. Who says you see a dot? Show of hands. Who sees something else? Okay, what do you see? Yes? Say, the world? Okay, like a globe. Okay, so a globe. Great, I like it, different approach. What nobody said, and like when I ask this question, always get the same response, is the white paper, right? And so the point is here that I've seen it also for myself. Sometimes you just focus on the next step. It's like, okay, now you need to get the good internship, you need to get the bachelor thesis, I get the master's. After the master's, I do, I get my first real job. Then maybe I do an MBA if I want, or just continue. I want to get the promotion. So you're almost kind of chasing the next thing. And it's great, I completely understand it. But sometimes there's value in saying, actually, let me take a step back. Kind of why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? It's like, okay, I want to have some financial independence. Okay, why? Ask, it's like a concept of the 5 whys, which I would encourage, like sometimes when there's something given to you, that you kind of break it down, like an onion, peel it, and understand, okay, why do I want to do this? Okay, why do I want to make money? Why do I want to do this? Boom, boom, boom. And really try to spend some time also what you think is your purpose.